In conversation with personal friends on Astad's 74th birthday, we are now allowed some glimpses into the man he was, the human being he was, and so many vulnerable moments. So one of them is Vidya Singh. Hi. So before we get talking, I have to tell my audience that we've been chuddy buddies since age, I think, baby class. I don't know, age 2 or age 3. And then our mothers were great friends. And then our lives took us to all different parts of the world. And now we're back in Chennai. So I did not know, Vidya, how you met Astad and how you bonded. So tell us that story.
I think, it goes back about 40 plus years, 47 years. I went to live in Bombay in 1974 when I got married. And Jai Singh, my husband, was very good friends with Astad. And that's when I actually met him for the first time. I had never seen modern dance. I think we grew up in Madras where we had Kalakshetra and Rukmini Devi. And that was our exposure to dance. And suddenly here it was Astad. And Jai Singh and I started going to a lot of his performances and watched him over the years. And then in 1978, we went to live in Juhu in Bombay. And by then I had my son Viraj, who was about 3 years old then. And we went to see his performance at the Prithvi Theatre. And it was very charming and very cute because here at Prithvi Theatre is this dark auditorium, like a coliseum almost, with the stage down at the bottom. And dark theatre and silence, and there was some strange, like his music, something going on. And there was Astad on the floor, sitting on the floor with his legs up in the air, and he was stroking one of his feet, like almost like it was a child. And in this dark, silent theatre, suddenly one little baby voice goes, "Why is Astad uncle touching his feet? Why is he stroking his feet?" And the audience burst out laughing in this very solemn moment. And it was really cute. Of course, Astad, the consummate performer and professional that he was, he just looked up and then just continued his performance. So that's been our friendship, I think, with him.
Well, but where you were the home in Chennai for him. He would always come and stay with you. And both your children sort of really bonded. I think you told me that Viraj was like the son he never had.
Absolutely. He loved both my children, Viraj and Vasundhara. And I remember him telling me on a couple of occasions, Vidya, in another lifetime, this boy could have been my son. And that for me was one of the most touching things anyone could say about Viraj, about us, and the whole friendship that we had. I mean, as a dancer, he was a star and all that, but I think for us, it was more, he was like a brother for me, hugely supportive through down times, hugely appreciative of anything we did, and all of that. And he would call me often on the phone to gossip about various people, and we would have a laugh about someone or the other. It was utterly, utterly charming. And, Vidya, he would, the minute I picked up the phone, he would say, "Vidya, you know what, there's something or the other." It was so cute. And my children, for them, he was Uncle Astad before he was a dancer. I mean, that was a part of him. And I think they squabble as siblings often do. And whenever they had a really bad fight, they would call me and say, "Mom, shall we call Astad uncle?" I said, "Yes, call him." So Astad, if he was in town, would drive over to Juhu and sort out their little squabbles that they had. It was the sweetest thing. And, I mean, there's so many memories of him, especially at home. In Madras, I was home. My home was his home, and he would automatically presume he was staying here, except maybe in a when he was during the day of the performance, and he would go and be isolated in a hotel or something. Otherwise, it was here at home.
Vidya, do you remember that amazing performance at Venki's house?
Absolutely.
Where he started on a windowsill, then walked up to the roof, and it's like, oh my God, he created a whole performance on a windowsill. And then and then all of us watched, and then he made us come into the courtyard, and we were all like this, watching up. And I've never seen somebody own the space. Do you remember when the Senate Hall opened?
That's right.
And he was the only person that anybody could think of who could just climb up those walls and dance between the arches,
That's
know?
right. Venki's house was one, and then he did a performance for IWA, International Women's Association, and it was at a lady who had a beautiful, huge home with a garden on the beach. And suddenly he was performing. They have a kind of a stage, and suddenly next moment he abandoned the stage and climbed up onto the water tank, right on top of the water tank, and started performing from there. It was really, that was the thing with Asta. He owned any space that he would want to perform in. And
Yeah.
he just, all the Iva ladies were just watching like, oh my God, I hope he doesn't fall from there. But it was like Venki's rooftop, very much like that.
Yeah. Well, I think you and I were in Kalakshetra for his last performance.
Absolutely.
Wasn't it, in February?
Wonderful performance with Inko, the Korean musicians,
Yes.
and Ashdeen's spectacular costume. It's in my mind even now when
I
think
know.
of Astad's last
Yeah.
performance.
Yeah.
But I did see him in another fabulous one at the Max Miller Bhavan a few months before that. That was the Max Miller has a very small stage, and somehow he was able to make that his space, and he did his performance there. So there have been over the years in Madras, Anjali said, I even saw the one you were talking about with the hearing impaired children in Madras. That was an astounding performance. Then another one that stands out in my mind is for the Hindu Theatre Fest when he performed again with the Korean people, Hamlet. Do you remember that? He performed Hamlet. That was also completely astounding.
So Vidya, because so many of us know him more as the performer, the professional, and he was a man of not many words. He was so private. So when did you know that he was not well?
I think it happened a couple of months before, when he knew the time was coming to an end. It was heartbreaking because I was driving on the beach road one day and he called me. I had to pull up on the side of the road because I got the shock of my life when he said this. And I was like, Asta, this can't be true. There has to be something that can be done. And then, so that was the first time I heard about it. And then it was a few days before he died. I think Gulshan was with him in the hospital and he called me from his hospital bed. It was very hard to hold your tears or your emotions and think that, no, it's not possible. This cannot be happening. And I think he called, among the last few people he called could have been Viraj, because Viraj told me that it was very traumatic for him to see Asta. He was in a pretty, towards the end, the very last day or 2 days or something, and he was in very bad shape. So Viraj was quite traumatized seeing him in that state. But it was completely heartbreaking, I think. But it's sad. But like Anjali said, I'm glad it was very quick and it was over. But I think it was way, way too soon for him to go. He had so much to give. He had so many people, like we were just saying earlier in your previous conversation, so many people he was supporting. And, he had people who were close to him and dancers. Everybody was, he was so bonded and connected with these people that it would have been very, very hard for them.
Is there one surprising incident or a quality about Asta that you would like to share that we don't know? Maybe a moment, an incident, something that
I think the sweet thing about him is that when he stayed with me, my maidservant Lakshmi loved him. Asta Daya. And he was actually surprisingly a very, very small eater. He didn't eat very large quantities of food. And my Lakshmi is one who loves to feed people. So she would be in complete despair because he would say, Idu venda, ille, like that, and chase her off. And she would be bringing him all kinds of South Indian idlis and things for breakfast and anything else. So I think there was a certain bonding and humanity about him, that a human bond that he could form with people. Even my little Lakshmi at home completely loved him. And he was so comfortable. He would sit around everywhere, make himself at home, come and go. And luckily I live very close to Inco. So the times he was rehearsing or performing, he just put on his shoes and just walk down the road to Inco. And so there was a great comfort factor. And I think for me, Astad was more, of course, dancer, number one. But for me, I think he was like a brother. somebody I could confide in, somebody who I could tell my troubles and worries with too, and he would not only sympathize, but he would calm you down and say, okay, don't worry, it's okay, it'll be over, don't worry, you know, things like that. So I have over the years had times when I've reached out to him. And like, you know, he loved phone calls. So that's another thing. We would be on the phone a lot throughout the year. You know, whenever he was in India, he would either WhatsApp and we'd call, we'd talk, and, you know, getting things off my chest, worries or troubles or, you know, of course, things like that. And my kids were both in regular touch with him regularly. They would talk to him and reach out to him, of course, all the time. For comfort and you know, things like that. But otherwise, it was something that was a bond that has lasted. I mean, I wish it could have gone another 40 years, but at least I'm looking from 1974 to now is a very long time. And
Yeah,
we
it
had a
is.
lot of common friends in Bombay, like Sam Kerawala, a lot of people who we knew in common who also, you know, loved him as much as we did. I think it was unconditional love, because there was no Lena Dena. I had nothing to do with the dance world except appreciate him and other friends who were dancers. And so I think he had that kind of a bonded feeling with us, as a family.
Yeah.
So
I think that's very sweet. It's very charming. Thank you, Vidya. I've seen how close he was with you and how
absolutely.
you never failed to, I mean, he stayed with you and you were always there, you know,
Yes.
right there, front center stage, whenever he was in the city.
Whenever he was performing, I would be there in the front row, sitting there
Yes.
watching him.
So maybe that was your whole entry into contemporary dance, just the possibilities of it, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He made it real. And I think he owned every stage. It was a drama that he created around not just himself and his dance, with his costumes and that incredible music. Each time it was something completely which we'd never heard. Music that we'd like, Japanese and so
Yeah.
all of these things. It was something astounding and extraordinary.
Yeah.
So
So
that
I
was,
know you can't call him and his voice is not there at the end of the line on his birthday today. But if you have a wish to, if you want to tell him something, what would it be today?
I think just to tell him, Astad, we loved you. Love you and loved you then and love you now and will forever. And I really wish that there was a God up there who could have saved him and kept him with us a little longer. That's the only thing. But I think our wishes and our love will always be there for him. There's no question of that. It's forever.
Okay. Thank you, Vidya. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.